Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to Mind Over Money. We've got a great conversation today about living costs. Just a note, my recording was done through my laptop. It sounds a little different today. Question: who's in control of your money? Is it the government, the banks, your family, friends, social groups, or is it you? Today, we're talking about the costs of living and how we can adjust our spending, even with rising inflation, to keep moving towards financial freedom. All that and more on today's show. You're listening to Mind Over Money. Lachy here from Waymaker Finance. A big hello to everyone listening in. I'm joined as always by Archie Franz. G'day, Archie.
G'day, Lachlan, and g'day to all our listeners.
Yeah, give us a shout out wherever you're listening from. Waymaker Finance on Instagram. That's our handle, Waymaker Finance. We're approaching our first 1,000 downloads, Archie, which means my mum has downloaded the podcast 1,000 times. So thanks, mum. So today, let's get on with today's conversation. We're talking about the cost of living. And, I opened the newspaper again today at the cafe, and there it was, front page. It's on the front page most days. It's on the front of people's minds. They go to fill up the car or get groceries or nervously open their latest gas bill.
Let's remember, though, that bad news sells.
Yeah.
And it's still the big common thing is selling bad news. So, yeah, we want to put that in context today.
Yeah, that's good. Let's put this all in context, because on the show we want to bring things in a positive light. So we want to talk about this, and then later in this episode we're going to talk about how to actually reduce your living costs. So we're not just going to talk about, I guess, the problem, but how we can actually take steps to overcome this rising inflation and actually keep moving towards financial freedom, which is the goal. So Archie, we know that interest rates is going up again. They affect our mortgage, but just to give some context for our listeners, how else do rates affect things like food, electricity? How does all that work?
The interest rates are one of the government's triggers in Australia to help control inflation. It doesn't always work, and we might be seeing one of those situations now where rising interest rates aren't going to actually help inflation, help reduce inflation back down. But they do need to raise interest rates because of the overall economy. And so, it's part of what the central bank and the government do just to keep the economy going well. And it's just one of their tools that they use to help adjust things. So in terms of inflation, there's other things that are really affecting inflation at the present time, which is what's been happening overseas, because we import a lot of stuff. And we started importing, even food because supermarkets and that, wanting to create more competition and to bring food in, at certain times when the Australian farmers can't produce it. But then that's also led to problems in that we've lost Australian farmers because they got competed out of the market. And then we've had floods and droughts, and so that's made it also more difficult to get those food products. And now we've got shortages overseas. So, and we've got droughts and floods happening overseas as well, which is impacting on food products as well. So we've got those things happening. We've got higher fuel costs. Those higher fuel costs are really feeding into the whole system because Australia runs on transport. We're a big country. We've got to move stuff around. So higher transport costs are affecting farmers. It's affecting food prices. It's affecting furniture prices, house prices, everything. It's a flow-on effect into the whole economy.
Before we get into what we can do to combat, I guess, these rising costs, let's actually we were looking at the CPI just before. Let's actually look at some of the areas of where prices have gone up. So we're going to put a link in the show notes, put a couple links in the show notes today. One of them is to the ABS, which actually shows the latest CPI, Consumer Price Index, which is up about 1.8% this quarter and 6.1% over the year. I'm going to put another link in to the RBA about how the CPI basket, what it is and how it's actually weighted. So we'll put those two links in the show notes. But can you explain a little bit what's been going on with the CPI and the different areas that have gone up?
Yeah. So what we've seen when we look at those, I really encourage people jump on and have a look at those stats and the way the CPI is looked at. But the three big ones are the food costs and the housing costs and the transport costs. They're the three big areas that have gone up quite substantially. And part of that is what we were just explaining before. Fuel prices have gone up, plus COVID and the impacts of COVID has had an effect on food prices, floods and droughts and all that sort of stuff too. So we're seeing food prices go up. We're seeing costs of housing go up. And so that cost of housing is around the rent prices as well as the interest rates that we're paying as well. So all of these things. So we had interest rates dropping, which was dropping inflation, and now we've got interest rates going back up, which is pushing inflation back up again because housing costs went down. Now they're going back up. And so we've got to take this in context and go, well, if we trim the actual CPI figures to take out the really low stuff and take out the really high stuff, we're sitting at about 4.9%, which is still higher than what the government wants. The government would like to get that back down to about 2.5, 3%. So, yeah.
But in terms of rate rises, though, the RBA is really catching up with other countries because Europe and the USA, their central banks have raised interest rates quite a bit.
Yeah, we've got to fit into the global economy and what's happening, but also, we've got to make sure our economy is moving ahead, and we couldn't keep those low interest rates because that's not actually good for the economy. So we've got to put them back up to where they should be. So yeah, it doesn't feel great, but this is where we should be. So that's where we're going to talk about. Let's get used to these things because this is where we're at. So and we can make adjustments, and enjoy, get on with enjoying our life.
And we'll talk about that just after the break. This is not an ad, but it is a plug to follow us on Instagram at Waymaker Finance, where we'll be sharing regular tips and tricks to managing your money. Plus, we'll keep you informed with the important things going on in the economy with a positive twist, of course. That is when we're not sharing our favorite memes. You'll also get notified of new podcast episodes, and you can send us a message or comment on our Instagram to ask questions for our monthly Q&A show, or just suggest topics that you'd like us to explore on the podcast. So plenty of great reasons to follow Waymaker Finance on Instagram. Go do it now. I'll just wait here while you do that. All right, there we go. Back to the show. Okay, we're back. Archie, rising costs, it doesn't mean we need to give up on our goal of financial freedom. And by financial freedom, we mean pursuing a life of greater freedom, of greater generosity and joy in our finances. But it does mean we need to take a new look at our strategy. And so what are some practical ways that we can adjust our living costs across these three main areas that we've identified in the CPI of food, home, and transport? What are some practical things that we can do?
Yeah, I love how Choice Magazine last year brought out an article on food costs across the different supermarkets. And really what their article showed was that you can actually spend over 50% more on your groceries when you buy branded groceries compared to buying non-branded.
We'll put that link in the show notes too. Yeah, that's another great one for people to check out.
Yep. And that was across all the different supermarkets. So it's not a matter of picking one supermarket over another supermarket. The key was, is it branded, or where you'll pay a premium, or was it a non-branded product? Because the non-branded product you're going to find it's pretty much the same as the branded product. It's just that you're paying for the branding. and It was a massive difference. Over the items they looked at, the cost went from $60, it went up by $80 to $145. So
It's more than double.
yeah, so there's some massive savings can be made in around groceries and food. Yeah,
How much could we just save if we just set a limit and just stick to the good basics, the basic
yeah,
foods, like you said, and the basic brands? So
yeah.
I do love that article that Choice has put out, and so we'll drop it in the show notes.
The key here is to set a limit. So when we talk about cash flow system like we did last week, it's you put down how much you're going to allow for groceries, and we should be allowing a percentage, of our income for groceries.
Mm,
But the the thing is, once you've set that limit, your mind is now in a different mode where it's actually looking for the best value.
mm,
So we're not just going shopping and buying whatever. We're actually going shopping looking for value because we've put it into that mindset. And
yeah,
that's one of the key things about having a good cash flow system is, there's massive savings. Like we've seen savings of up over $30,000 a year by just changing the mindset in around groceries.
yeah. You go from window shopping where everything's at eye level, which is what they want you to buy, to intentional. I'm here to get these things on this list, and I'm hunting for a good deal. Yeah,
Yeah,
huge difference.
yeah,
And
yep.
that's what that Choice article found, which is if you buy non-branded products, or if you just, in other words, you're just looking for the product with the best value at the lowest cost, you can
Mm,
save over 50%. So whatever you're spending now on groceries, spending 10 grand a year on groceries, you can halve that. And
yeah,
there's $5,000 for a
yep.
family holiday or something else.
Yeah, a good thing that came up in the recent articles that I've been reading around food, and especially to get healthy food, is that a lot of our fresh food produce, especially if it's coming from overseas, has lost a lot of its value, and we're actually better off going to the freezer section and buying snap frozen fresh veggies.
Mm,
So, depending on your circumstances, um, but then there's also the local grocery stalls, grocery shops that are selling fresh fruit and veggies, and it's not imported stuff. It's going to be local type stuff,
mm,
and it's not been in cold storage, and so you're going to get some pretty good local, in season items that are actually fresh and healthy for you and really good for you.
yeah. And when they're in season, they're cheaper. It's when you
Yeah,
buy out of season that's where you
yeah.
get slugged. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yep. But start checking out the freezer section because there's some really good stuff there. And yeah, have a look around. Let your mind find those special places where you can get some extra stuff from at a really good price. I remember a scientist bringing this years ago that snap frozen vegetables were far better for us than trying to buy organic vegetables. And his point was that we grow a lot of good food, and it's more important that we get the fresh food than it is whether it's organic or branded some way. It's all
Mm,
about, is it fresh? Is it good nutrition? Because that's what our body needs. And
yeah.
it's really good to see that. And we have farmers who really work hard at getting us good stuff. And but then we have a lot of negativity around things that try and put us off stuff. Again,
Yeah.
marketing. To sell us something that's worth more. Like you were saying before, the supermarket wants us to buy all their bakery products that they produce
Mm, the feel good
because,
foods. Yeah.
because there's such big markup on it and they make such good money out of it. So that's why there's a big section of it.
Yeah, especially ready to go meals as well, which are loaded with
Mm,
sugar and again, huge markup. And because they don't give us that a nutrition that we're looking for, really what the result is that we're just hungrier, and so we go back
mm,
and buy. So when we did a weekly shop, now we're doing 3 shops a week,
yeah,
and we're just spending more money.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, look, what Trish and I've noticed is that our weekly shop has not increased with the rising prices.
mm,
And that's because we're not actually buying stuff that's rising in price.
yep,
So again, we're not buying branded stuff. We're buying local, and we've seen no price rise in our grocery shopping.
transport is the next one.
Yeah, so we've got a link going in the show notes around the cost of vehicles that the RACQ have done. It is from 2020, But the thing it shows is the actual cost of running a car on a weekly basis.
And what does that entail before we give out the numbers? What is that including in those numbers?
It's including the cost of the car itself, as well as the cost of fuel and the cost of maintenance on the vehicle.
Insurance as well?
And insurance, yeah. Just the cost of running the car, yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Registration. So when you're looking at that particular article by RACQ there, it breaks up the cars into different sections, small cars, medium cars, SUVs, four-wheel drives, all the different types there. But the thing I keep noticing is that there's been a very heavy push towards SUVs and towards four-wheel drives, and the car cost increases from like $160, $170 a week to these other cars, SUVs and four-wheel drives, that are costing $350 plus a week. And so that's a massive increase on your costs of living. And it's not because fuel's gone up. It's actually because of what you've chosen to drive.
Yeah.
And the actual cost of that vehicle to actually drive that vehicle. And, the bigger the car, the more fuel it goes through. So therefore your fuel costs go up. And, now that we've got rising fuel prices, we're feeling that cost go up and the impact that it's having on our budget.
Just to pick out a few here, so we got like a small low-cost car, like a Yaris, for example, was about $176 a week.
Yep.
We got medium cars, so like a Camry, is about $250 a week. Some of those can jump a little bit depending on the type of car.
Yep.
Large cars, like an SUV included, is about $350 a week, and the same with four-wheel drives and utes, around $350 and above a week.
And above, yeah,
is the total running cost. So yeah, big difference between the different cars. So gets you thinking, what do I really need to run around town?
Yeah.
Because bigger isn't always better. And I see people get bigger cars just to cut things around, to the dump once a year. And you just think, well, you could just buy a trailer or rent a trailer when you need it down at your local petrol station.
Oh, look, you can hire a ute when you need a ute to do something. You can just hire it. You can hire trucks, to move stuff around. There's so much we can do, but we've got to get outside the box in our thinking. And by setting ourselves a budget again, like a limit on what we're going to spend based on our income, then we're going to put ourselves in the right frame of mind to choose the right car and to choose the right situation for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the key thought here is it starts with the choice of car, the transport costs, not as much the fuel, but actually the choice of car. And no car costs the same to run or insure. Every car is different. So it comes back to the choice of car that we're choosing to drive.
That's right. And the more we spend on the vehicle, then the less financial freedom we're going to have. But we also, in the overall budget, we've got choice. So if we want to spend more on a car, well, we're going to have to choose what we're going to go without. And that's the whole reason that we want to have a cash flow system, is so that we're actually choosing, especially with our partners, what it is we're going to actually do and what we're going to prioritize. And it takes all the stress out of it, because, getting that car, it could be the one thing that stresses you out and where you lose your financial freedom, you lose your joy, you lose your generosity because that car takes over. And it's the same with groceries. It's the same with the home. We're going to talk about the home as well. All of these things, these are the big items that really impact our cash flow. And that's why we're focused on them.
Food, transport, and then the third big one was the home. So what are some things around the home that we can be mindful of with our spending and reducing those costs?
So Australia was such a lucky country. We see people come from overseas and we find that they spend way less on food than we do. We see them spend way less on cars than we do, and we see them spend way less on houses than we do because they come in without the marketing. They come in, without all the thoughts, the social stuff. They don't listen to the sales guy, and they just look at their money and they look at what's available and they just go, wow, there's just so much here. And so the thing with the home is that you can buy a 90 square meter home, and by home, that could be anything. Could be, a caravan right through to, a 2-story house. on acreage. So we're just talking a home here. But, you can have a 90 square metre home that'll end up costing you, because it's 90 square metres, you can't fill it with stuff.
Yep.
It's not going to cost much to heat or cool down. There's lots of advantages there. But again, it's how much you're prepared to spend. But you'll spend way less on that than you will on a 200 square metre home that requires a lot of heating, a lot of cooling. There's so many rooms and so much space to fill up. And, you can just end up spending so much money on that 200 square metre home. So you got to pick a home that suits your income again.
Yeah.
Basically. Whether that's renting or whether that's buying, it's picking that home that actually suits your income. And again, we get caught up in this, we're going to make all this money out of our home. And I see that so often. And we start gambling. We start buying something that we can't afford, that we're gambling that we're going to make all this money on it. And in the end, we've got no clear plan. We've got no clarity around how it's going to work. And we're just hoping that, the home's going to work out really well for us. And then we hear the stories where it does work out, but we never hear the stories where it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Because no one talks at the barbecue about their failures.
Yep.
We always talk about our successes. So with the home, there's, the stats on the CPI show us that, about 23% of income is being spent on the home. But if we want financial freedom and get that home paid off, and even if we're renting and we're saving to buy a home, we actually need to be spending more than that.
Yeah. So let's take a $1,500 a week household income as an example. Just going off some stats we pulled out from the Grattan Institute around average income. So we got a household income of $1,500 a week. So what would we want to spend on the home, including repayments to the home, the loan mortgage, or rent, and saving towards buying a home to really move ahead financially?
So we actually ran the numbers on this, and it's going to be close to 50%. So it's going to be up around $700, $800 a week to actually move ahead.
So that's putting extra into the home loan. That's rates. That's home costs. Yeah, that's a lot of different things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And then if you're renting, it would be keeping the rent as low as possible so we can get extra savings towards the home deposit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you're best renting with mum and dad for a while to get that savings happening and to give yourself a bit of motivation of I've got to get out of here. unless mum and dad are really cool, and you love living at home, and then they're probably thinking, how do we get them out of here?
That's where they need to charge board.
So focusing on financial freedom and having joy. So if we've been paying the extra onto our home loan, over the last say 5 years, and we're seeing interest rates going up, we shouldn't be worried because we've already paid a big chunk off our home. And this is the advantage of actually getting in and doing something, because when the changes come, like we're seeing now, we're ready for them. Yeah. It doesn't have a big impact on us. But if we've over borrowed for a house, hoping to get ahead, we can be in a lot of financial stress, because those rises in interest rates means that we're not going to be able to sell the house for what we thought we would. It also means, that we're now paying way more money than we can probably afford. And, we're being pushed into a space that we don't want to be in. And this is why we said right at the beginning, who's controlling your money? Is it your social circle? Is it the salesperson? Is it the great marketing? Who's actually controlling your money? Because we keep consistently find that when we're in control of our money, we're happy.
Yeah.
And we do so much better.
Yeah, that's so good. I think in the last couple of years, we've had this really interesting time where there has been really cheap money. There hasn't been as much pressure to put in the work to save and get ahead. But like you said, the people who have been preparing are prepared now. And if you haven't been preparing, this is a great time to get prepared.
It is,
because things will keep changing again. And so we want to be ready.
There's always a motivating force. And at the moment, living costs and interest rates are a motivating force, and we're seeing that. We're seeing people motivated to change. So, which is great.
Yeah, it's a great thing. Yeah.
So on our $1,500 a week income, when we're looking at groceries, food, around 10% is a good level.
Okay. So that's 150 a week. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And some people think, oh, that's too low. But again, you've got to set the level and then go for it. Like let your mindset change, start to see what happens. Because if we think that we can't do it and we don't set the level, it ain't going to happen. Like you got to have a go. That's the big thing with these things. Is that if you do nothing, you get nothing.
Yeah.
So you've got to do something. And again, the amount can increase by say $50 if we've got a few kids. But again, we've got to play that off against whatever else we're going to change. Because if we increase this area, we have to decrease some other area.
Right.
And and it may be that we need to decrease our transport, or we may need to decrease our house, because the house, the food, and the transport make up most of where our money goes.
Yeah, I mean, you add these three together, and you're well over 70%. So, so the transport, we're saying about 10% is a good place to aim.
Yeah. So in this case, $1,500 a week, transport costs $150 a week. There was only one car that matched that, and that was a small car.
Yeah, I know in our world we are seeing a lot of couples actually downgrade or sell a car because someone's working from home now, so they only need one car instead of two. Or in other cases, people just picking up public transport again. I've seen a lot of people ride around on electric bikes now. So again, flexibility is key. Do you actually need two cars or three cars? Some people have more.
Yeah, which almost comes back to the bigger house again. If you've got a bigger house, you're going to fill it up. If you've got a bigger yard, you're going to fill it up.
Yeah. And if you got a big if you got a big shed, it's got to be filled up with tools and junk. Yeah.
Yeah. We really do. In Australia, we've got this amazing opportunity that we can determine how much we spend on our housing, our transport, our food. We're not at the mercy like the media is trying to make out. We're at the mercy of what's going on. And we're trying to say to people, no, you're not. You've actually got control here. And the more control you take, the better things get.
Yeah. So these are just some examples. Again, this is for a $1,500 household income a week, but the percentages are the key. So think in percentages, get flexible, move money around to fit your values and your circumstance. So if you want more car, find ways to reduce other spending. We're not here to give rules, but we're just trying to encourage people to understand their situation and have that conversation. Because if we ignore it, one thing's for sure, the money's going to disappear out the door either way. So
yes, it will.
we can take control of our living expenses, and that creates resilience. It creates freedom. It creates joy, and that's what we're all about here on the Mind Over Money podcast.
That's it.
So we've covered a bit here. Actually, what's a closing thought for today?
Yeah. So closing thought is you need a cash flow system so that you're actually working this through together as to what you're spending and also what you're saving. So, if you haven't got a house yet, you've got to be saving for it. If you're needing furniture and stuff, gamify it, get that gamification happening so that you're saving up for these things and you're getting that thrill out of being in control of that money situation, and then you're able to purchase what you're after. And I just had someone this week say to me that they listened to last week's podcast, and that just stood out to them, about gamifying the purchases for the home, the things that they need, and so they're already working on it. They've already changed and started working on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode, go check that one out. It was all about setting up a cash flow system and gamifying it for success. Well, this was great. I hope listeners, you're encouraged by today's conversation. We can take control of our living costs. There are three main areas we've identified: the home, transport, and food that make up the biggest portion of our spending. And they are areas we can focus on this week. Well, until next time, Archie, thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Lachlan. So, if you're ready to do something around your cash flow, well, now's the time to do it. So head over to the show notes, waymakerpodcast.com.au, and you can connect up with us or a financial planner and get the help that you really need right now and get things started. Thanks for listening to Mind Over Money, and have a great week.
Nailed it. Okay, you can do the outro from now on.